Hi, and thanks for taking the time to watch this video explaining the new grading policy at Mills Park Middle School. I'm John Warwick, an assistant principal, and I'll be explaining the types of categories that you'll see in Power Schools, the points that students can earn in these categories, and why we've made some of the changes to our grading policy to get the most out of your children. At Mills Park, we believe that grades should accurately reflect a student's knowledge of what they've learned in class. Sometimes in the past, grades haven't always represented how much the student knew because points were taken off for certain behaviors, such as not being organized, work being late, etc. This year, all of your child's teachers will be using total points in their grade book. In the past, some teachers weighted different things, like tests were worth 50%, quizzes were worth 20%, etc. This year, all your students' teachers will have a total number of points they can earn. For example, your student earned 293 out of the 325 points that the teacher offered this quarter. That means the student has a 90% or a B. A major change in our schedule that will help us implement this new grading policy is called leopard time. Students will have a 50-minute lunch period during which they'll eat for 25 minutes and have 25 minutes in a classroom for leopard time. This is an opportunity for kids to meet with teachers, to ask questions, to get clarification on instruction, to work on missing classwork or homework assignments that weren't completed in time, and to just get a head start on that night's homework. They can also read for pleasure, but we don't consider this a social time when students will just sit and talk. Homework at Mills Park this year will only be worth 1 point each night. This is a change from the various grade books that teachers had to minimize the impact of a student who has or doesn't have differing levels of support at home. Some students do their work entirely by themselves. Some students have parents that help them with it, that make sure it's finished every night. This way we try to level the field a little bit, and we make sure that at no point at the end of a quarter will a student have more than 5% of their total points earned from homework. When these assignments are missing, students can work on it during leopard time. You'll also see classwork or labs in the grade book. These have a maximum of 15 points, and these are assignments that teachers gave and the students worked on during class. They might be turned in late, but they'll always be due at the end of a unit. So if a student doesn't have it done in time, they may have a few extra days before the unit's over, because it's important that they do the work and learn the material before the assessment that comes up at the end of the unit. We're going to really need your help to make this change. Since students will be able to turn them in late, we all have to be working together to make sure that students are also learning the importance of responsibility while we try to make sure they do all the work that's assigned that teachers think will help them learn the material. You'll also see projects in the grade book. These may be done at home, they may be done at school, or they may be done in a combination of both. They'll have a maximum of 20 points unless the teacher's using it as a unit test. They can be turned in late, but they'll be due at the end of the quarter. We don't want anyone to turn them in late. We want everyone to work on time with due dates. But if it's not finished, we don't want anyone to lose the motivation to do it because every day they're losing a letter grade or 10% of the project's points. It'll be graded by a rubric when it's turned in, and when students are missing work like projects, they'll be forced to work on these things during leopard time as well. You'll see quizzes in the grade book. These will have a maximum of 20 points, and these are the smaller assessments that a teacher will give throughout a unit to check in on students, make sure that they're keeping up with the content, and plan future instruction based on the performance on quizzes. You'll also see very small quizzes, like 1 to 5 points, for example. These little quizzes might be used as an in-class follow-up to homework. You'll see tests in the grade book, and these will have a range from 25 to 50 points. And a difference between tests and quizzes is students will have one chance on these for point recovery. This means that if the student failed to show all that they knew for that unit on the test and they feel like they could do better, They'll have the opportunity to either take a retake of the test or do some meaningful test corrections that show they understand the material, or maybe take an alternate assessment. The teacher will share with students and parents how they decide if students have earned this opportunity through maybe doing some corrections of the original test, or completing a study guide, or attending a study session. The major changes to the policy can be summed up that we don't want as a school, as parents, students, teachers, and administrators, we just don't want to accept that students get zeros in class. We want them to have an opportunity to make up the work. If it was worth doing the first time, if there was meaningful learning that took place doing it, then we still want that learning to take place, and we want the work to be completed, even if it's late. And then separately, our conversations and relationships with the kids will hopefully help to foster the responsibility that isn't necessarily tied to the grade. Some other information. It's essential that our parents have a Power School login. Many of you got this at our open house during the summer. If you didn't, contact your child's homeroom teacher and they can get you the information you need. Bring in the completed form, show a photo ID, and we can get you that login. And this allows you to see your students' grades in live time, updated weekly by the teacher. You may also see some non-weighted items when you're in Power Schools. These would be assignments that teachers put in to communicate with you, but there's no points that are adding to the total. You'll see your child's benchmark tests or Case 21 tests listed in the grade book, or you might see whether they turned in or didn't turn in a permission slip. Again, these don't affect the average at all in any way. These don't add total points to the overall score. They're just in there to let you know from the teacher whether something was completed or not. If you have questions about your child's individual grades in class, those are best addressed by their classroom teacher. You could also reach out to the grade level administrator if you had certain questions. But I'm also available to further discuss the grading policy, to talk about why we're doing this, or to answer any questions you have about this presentation. My email address is jwarwick@wcpss.net, and my office phone is 919-466-1535. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. We're behind this grading policy, and we really feel like this is the best way to get the most out of the great students that we have at Mills Park.